What is going on, guys? Datcoopguy here, and today we're going to be talking about World of Warcraft Dragonflight, which just got the reveal just yesterday. And today we're going to be talking about 8 things that they did not talk about in the initial review that ended up having to pop up in different interviews, and really interesting stuff that is pretty game-changing, all things considered, going forward. So without further ado, let's stop talking. Let's just dive in. All right, so the first thing is that there's not going to be any legendaries in the new expansion, or at least not in the way that they've been done in the last couple of expansions. So, with the new style of legendaries that they're trying to go for, they're going to be going away from the Legion and the Shadowlands style of crafting your own legendaries or finding multiple different legendaries. They said in the future that they really want to try to incentivize focusing on sort of how they did with Sylvanas, where she dropped her bow and quiver and everything. So in the future, it looks like they're going to be more focusing on different quest lines and having it to where if a named character drops a certain particular like named weapon, so that seems like what they're going to be going for in the future. So no more legendaries, guys. One of the things also mentioned, not shown in the interviews or talked about, is that the Invoker's new class color is going to be a dark green. They wanted it to stick out a little bit more compared to everything else, and from the Hunter and the Monk, obviously they have it to where they are both green as well, but this makes it to where it's a very dark green, and it's also hopefully not that bad for people of color blindness. That's something that they are working on. It's not full on the color that they're thinking of doing, but at the moment it is going to be a dark green color to help make it to where it overall fits the different color UI that they are trying to do with the different class colors. The next big thing is that professions are going to have specializations, which the reveal already talks about that. But what exactly does that mean? In a interview with Hazel, Ian mentioned that there is going to be profession talent trees similar to how we have our own talents. And one of the things is like basically as time goes on, you're going to be able to buy different recipes and do different upgrades to where you specialize in stuff. So, for example, a really good example of this is back in the day, engineers had Goblin Engineering, which you got to specialize in this particular way of doing engineering. Well, that's kind of what they're going for in the future, is going to be that you specialize with a certain craft, it gets more powerful. But he even mentioned that it's not just like, oh, making plate armor and like armor is like your main focus. It's also being able to be like you're the best armor helmsmith. And actually, as time goes on, you will be able to eventually max out, but it will take a long, significant time compared to how it is in Shadowlands, where you get yourself all geared out and maxed out in a matter of like a couple of minutes or with a couple of thousand gold. Speaking of professions, though, archaeology is dead, ladies and gentlemen. So archaeology, they said that they haven't included it in the last couple of expansions because it did have some cool ideas that they were going for with it, with revealing lore and looking at it. And they said the archaeology minigame kind of feels outdated. And for the time of Cataclysm, it was very interesting and cool and fresh. But as time goes on, it's just pretty much you click, it's yellow, okay, it's close. Click, it's green, get a little closer. Okay, there's the relic. You click it. They want to make it a little bit more fun and exciting. They said that archaeology will not be included in the next expansion, but they're hoping to redo it completely later on. They did mention in one of the interviews that they are possibly looking at Zeref Mortis, like sort of the mini games that you do with that, into the new archaeology system. So it would be a fun way of keeping that tech and carrying it over. Maybe you find like an ancient chest and then you unlock it. So that way it's a little bit more fun and interactive compared to what the profession is now, which is basically dead. And every once in a while they'll just throw like a mount or something in there and artifacts that you sell for like a little bit of gold. So I understand. I haven't touched archaeology since, I don't know, it looks like WAD. So yeah, I don't blame them for one bit for wanting to redo it completely. The other thing is pet battles are actually looking at possibly getting a new mode. They mentioned this, it won't be on release, but they're talking about possibly making it to where pet battles will have a new mode of having it to where they defend something. Ian posted the idea and was talking about it's a feature that they are looking into, and having it to where also there's more features such as what they had in MOP with like different in-game bosses and things out there, and pet battle dungeons going to be expanded further. And on top of it, they're looking at making it to where it's a little bit easier for new players to jump in and get into pet battling, and making it to where the future as a whole has a lot more fun mini games involving your pets and giving it to where they have more reasons to get them. The next big thing is that Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be adding old content to stir up so that way you're not doing the same dungeons over and over and over again. So you're going to have your typical Mythic Plus with your new sort of dungeons and everything else out there. But going forward, they're going to be trying to utilize some of the older dungeons that they have out there. So there's been talks of possibly Miss Pandaria, Cataclysm, Warlords of Draenor, certain ones that they know that they can easily adapt the technology that they have in place and add it going forward. They said it's actually really easy to code a lot of the old sort of dungeons out there and give it to where they are updated for the new Mythic Plus going model. So this is going to be a fun way of making it to where you're not doing the same dungeons over and over and over again, and you won't get burned out so quickly with doing Mythic Plus and adding those affixes going forward. Speaking of dungeons, and still on the notion of talking about dungeons, there is going to be 8 new dungeons going forward in the new expansion. And they even hinted at possibly adding more dungeons in the future because they say that with Mythic Plus being considered in-game content, they can add more of these different dungeons out there. So they said that they really like the idea of having it to where they have 8 dungeons at the start and adding a mega dungeon going forward later on, as this kind of makes it to where it has a little bit more life and they can split up those mega dungeons into different sort of parts there. Adds a nice way of doing a quick gear up, and at the same time adding it to where they can split it into multiple little tiers and add it to where overall Mythic Plus will have like 10 to 12 dungeons, which on top of what I just previously talked about with time walking ones, that they will be able to make it to where all the stuff combines together to where you almost have 12 to 14 to 15 different combinations of dungeons. So that way, when you do Mythic Plus, you'll have so many out there. Now, they did still talk about how with seasons, they still want to have about 9 to 10 rough and dirty. They don't want to have too many options going forward, as some of the sort of perks and affixes that they have going forward might counteract with some of the keys being very terrible. And they don't want to have an issue of like Sanguine Depths, which is bad with Sanguine and a bunch of other stuff, making it to where it's a really hard overall experience. And they want to make it to where it has a little bit more life and spread along the entire content cycle. So where is player housing? They haven't talked about it. There's nothing mentioned at all, and we have no clue what is going on with player housing. Until a recent interview, they mentioned that player housing is something that they are looking into eventually doing. They said the issue is that it takes so much time in designing the systems and the art that they have to kind of borrow the systems team, the UI team, the art team, and it's such a major project that it almost takes up a whole patch worth of content. And it's to the point where, would you rather have a raid tier or would you rather have player housing? They also want it to be a multiple expansion feature rather than just something like the garrisons and everything. They also don't want to make it to where player housing has too much power, as it can get to the issue of the garrison thing again, where you're just living in your garrison the entire time rather than having a whole on raid tier. So it looks like this was actually one of the reasons that WoD was having a lot of issues, was a lot of the UI and design and everything went into the garrison, but wasn't able to really go out into the world. And he mentions that like it just takes so many different parts of the team to develop this feature that it takes such a long amount of time for them to design this. So it looks like going forward they are looking into doing it. It's something that they have to build in the background. They can't really afford to put all hands on deck on it. They said that possibly it could be used for a 0.5 feature or an in-between patch feature, but right now with us going to this new island and kind of exploring it, it doesn't make sense thematically to just place a house there yet. So he gave us kind of a little tidbit of like it's going to be coming, but not quite there. But basically, it's a lot of resources, and they will be doing it possibly in the future. But it's just they need the time and the resources to give that time for it to happen. So look forward to an in-between patch, possibly. But anyways, guys, that is 8 things that you guys did not know about World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Some different things that were kind of hidden and some sort of insider information that you guys really didn't get to see in the reveal and that were kind of exposed later on in interviews or are not currently posted on different websites. I don't know why. But it is important that you guys get all the information that you possibly can, and I'm going to keep on doing my research, keep on busting out videos, and hopefully get a little bit better with my production value going forward so we can dive into World of Warcraft Dragonflight and get into the meat and potatoes and all the fun stuff and the excitement and the different things, and also being critical of some of the features going forward, as it's important that we give this feedback early so that way we can have this game flourish later on. Anyways, hit that fucking subscribe button. I need all the subscribers I can get. I am almost at 2 million views, but with only less than 3K. It is crazy, crazy. So be sure to help me out. Hit that like button, hit subscribe button. I'll see you guys.